He's aware. He's self-aware. And that is such a significant and essential recognition. But the problem is that we stay stuck in it. We like being separate, apparently, with all its sorrow and loneliness from time to time. We like thinking that we are self-ruling and self-maintaining, when in fact we're not. We live within a much greater life. We live within the life of God. And yet Western religion seems to present an idea that God resides outside of and apart from the manifested world. To my mind, one of the great contributions of the Eastern religious view is that God, yes, is transcendent, apart from and above and beyond the created world, much greater than that, but also present within it, in every aspect of it. So the sense of the self is needed to be aware of one's own potential divinity. But when we reside within that sense of being a separated self, we build a prison, we build a barrier.
Yes, this self-centeredness is a stage we have to go through from, I suppose
from the herd?
From the herd, yeah. I mean, we work our way up through the animal kingdom and then into the human kingdom, and it's that point that we become, that the self becomes apparent, and we become an individual. And this is a stage that's necessary because we just can't go from herd consciousness into the next stage of group consciousness, which we've talked about before. But so it's an inevitable stage that we have to just struggle through and make our way through it and make all kinds of mistakes. And so, yes, that the great barrier to moving on is this. I was thinking of these entrenched attitudes that so many people tend to have sometimes, and entrenched ways of thinking. They're happy in their little niche in the world, and they're suspicious of every other kind of thinking outside the box, so to speak. And I'm thinking of the Luddite mentality, where they were this group of individuals. I think they were in England back in the 19th century.
Well, I don't know. I always associate that term with Jonathan Swift, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, maybe so, but they had...
No, I think I'm wrong.
They were so anti-technology.
Yeah, right.
And they just didn't...
The Unabomber claimed he was a Luddite.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's groups, individuals, and groups of individuals that are stuck in that kind of category, and they see no need to move.
Well, that's why sometimes a good crisis is an effective blow against the head that shocks one out of that.
It's the 2x4.
That dream.
It's the 2x4 on the mule.
Yeah.
That could be the catalyst to
bring
us into a new dimension of consciousness, I guess. Yeah.
But wouldn't you say that humanity is really profoundly polarized in this stage of being vividly self-aware, not only on an individual level, but whole masses and nations are aware of themselves. The nation state is a fairly new construct, as I understand it, of just the last century or two. And that's, again, an expression of selfhood, which is necessary, but also becomes a limitation.
Yeah, it becomes like the question over sovereignty.
Major question before the UN
right now, and that's a big question that people in every nation is going to have to give way on. In other words, if we're going to realize our oneness and the one humanity, then some of this staunch call for sovereignty will have to be kind of let go, I think.
And the difficulty is in realizing that sense of self-containment, of independence can be released, and yet you don't lose your own spiritual autonomy. You can give up a certain amount of separateness without giving up real spiritual freedom. In fact, you gain it. You gain freedom.
That's the thing that's hard for them to realize. Perhaps you're really gaining more in the long run than what you're giving up. You're gaining, even if you have to give up some sovereignty, you're gaining a more unification with the world.
But it's hard to believe that until you're really ready to make that leap. And I think humanity is really engaged in this process on a massive level today, where we have such extreme examples of selfishness and of creativity, which also is an aspect of the consciousness of the self. Great gifted contributions are visible, but also extreme selfishness. And so I suppose these are all signs that we are poised on this threshold of being ready to merge into a larger, more expanded consciousness, if not of the one humanity, at least of some larger realm of group relationship. I hope so.
It's something that has to come because of what's in store for humanity just over the horizon, so to speak, in this new age that we're coming into.
What do you mean?
There's the universality in consciousness that we're moving toward. I mean, this is what human consciousness is moving towards, and will eventually develop through humanity. There will be this expression of universal awareness, and I think that's what's ahead for the human race.
But you can't even begin to prepare for that kind of awareness until you have given up some of your sense of being separate from and apart from and different than, perhaps better than everybody else.
Right.
This whole, maybe next time we can get into this whole discussion of being separated from the larger whole, because it's a fascinating area to ponder on.
And it's not just an Eastern religion concept. It's also the latest science, too, is that in truth, in true reality, we are everything, all of life is connected. That's true reality, and that the illusion is what we were talking about before, that we are separate entities, that's the falsehood. And it's also interesting to just talk about that idea that I read in Science News not too long ago, about how, in Science News there was an article about how 90% of the science that was considered to be true and real back in the 1890s is now considered to be false. So with that note, we should all keep open-minded about new possibilities for what reality is. Once again, that gift, if you'd like the gift of the pamphlet that we will be happy to send out to you, it's titled The Energy of Light. Give us a call at 1-866-695-8247, and we'll send it out to you in the easy way, 1-866-NY-Lucis. Think of 1-866 New York Lucis. That's about all the time we have for our discussion today. You've been listening to Inner Sight. Now we'd like to close with a world prayer called the Great Invocation. It's a call for light and love and goodwill to flow into the world and into our hearts. Let's listen for a moment to these powerful words.
From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.